My name is Karolina Niewęgłowska, and I am the Associate Director of Player Experience and Safety at CD Projekt Red, and I've been in the company since early 2011, so over 13 years now, and I participated in all the major projects by the company. And before we begin in earnest, I would like to show you a little video, the video courtesy of Reddit users. A beautiful sunny day in Night City, a security bot having a break, having a little smoke. All right, so what do you folks think? Is this a bug or a feature? Those in favor of a bug, please raise your hands. So little, you know, like of Cyberpunk, I thought it would be more. What about a feature? Okay, thank you. So the room is quite evenly divided, but I will not grant you an answer yet. Let's go through the presentation. Maybe you will stay till the end. Let's begin. Here's our agenda. We will discuss the context and a little bit of history of my company. And then the approach that stems from it and the results of it. And finally, one bug's journey from a ticket, the eponymous ticket that you have in the title of the presentation, to the resolution. And a blast from the past. And actually, this slide, courtesy of our trainings team in CDPR, because I've taken some elements of the slide which is shown to new recruits at CDPR when they begin their journey with the company. So perhaps you will also see it at some point another time. And 1994, the company CD Projekt, CD Projekt in Polish, is established. And it is actually a distribution company. It's a company that is selling games, and it is the first company in Poland that sells games in boxes that are fully localized into Polish. In 1994, big achievement. So then 1999 comes, and CD Projekt is the first company in Poland to publish games which are fully localized into Polish, the whole game. And the first such games are Baldur's Gate and then Baldur's Gate 2. And these are truly legendary localizations on the Polish market. And then finally, 2002, and CD Projekt Red, the studio, is established. And it is established in Łódź, a town in Poland. However, soon after, it moves to Warsaw, and then all the parts of the company, the business part and the development part are together. And since then, they are working together very closely in one place, co-located, cooperating on a daily basis. Same place, all the parts, business and dev. And then fast forward, and maybe some of you heard, 2020 Cyberpunk is released. And then 2023, last year, Cyberpunk 2077 2.0, the full overhaul of the game, as well as the Phantom Liberty expansion are released. I will be referring to this concept, this quality of close cooperation of the whole spectrum of game making, whole spectrum meaning dev, publishing, and back office, as togetherness. And I believe that CDPR has this togetherness pretty high. People are having lunch together, drinking coffee together, talking to each other. There's a certain informality inbuilt in the culture, and there is cooperation on a daily basis. This is how the company grew up across the years. So indeed, growing together and working together, the three beautiful sisters, dev, publishing, and back office. And in this context, my team, Player Experience and Safety, grew up in the space in between, like the name of one of the quests in the game. It is very much a hybrid team, having both development and communication responsibilities. And here is the network of cooperation. I actually only included here the teams with whom we cooperate either on some content for players or on some communication for players. Of course, there are also other teams like HR, which I did not include here. I lumped some of them together. I simplified the name just to show this circle of co-op. Player Experience and Safety is part of the communications team. And this team, together with marketing, they form a structure called Integrated Marketing Communications. However, the cooperation goes very strongly between all the parts of this circle. Our team especially closely cooperates with Quest team, technical teams, QA team, legal team, for example. An example of cooperation with legal would be on items referring to consumer rights. And for the tech teams is all kinds of new technical features which need clear description either in settings or externally to announce them. Path tracing would be one such example. There was a video created at the time when we released path tracing in the game. Behind the settings, this was a production of our teams, of course with help of other teams. And also PC system requirements are an example here. So this is the internal circle, let's say, but this is not a closed system. We also cooperate with business partners wherever this is relevant. And how player experience and safety, again, my team participated in CP77 overhaul in several ways. Technical communication. This is patch notes, communicating technical changes, educational materials. So yes, if something is misdescribed in the patch note, it's our fault. Then technical support, direct communication with players, reported issue statistics. Player experience and safety originated from tech support. This is the OG team. And now player experience and safety, well, envelops it. Tech support is one of the sub-teams. And then there is feature input, various in-game settings, error messages, some achievement requirements, and information on game boxes, for example, if you call it a feature. And finally, everything is suffused with player experience perspective, which is keeping in mind the value for the player. So much for the context. Now let's jump to the resulting approach. And you may have guessed by now that I believe this togetherness that I mentioned is a strength, and that it helped us somehow. And on the small scale, it is visible in the operations of teams like player experience and safety, highly connected with many other teams, cooperating with them on a daily basis. And on the large scale, it is visible in the close ties between the big three, publishing, dev, and back office. But you may also rightly ask if we are so together, if we are so highly connected, so nicely cooperating, what exactly went on in 2020? How could Cyberpunk 2077 be released? And well, there was quite a lot of noise around it, not always positive. So I will allow myself to answer in the words of my valued colleague and close friend, Colin Walder. And he said, and this is actually a direct quote from our Slack conversation between me and him, "That's the trick. Natural only really works on a small scale. As you grow, you need to mindfully and purposefully maintain and enforce that as a standard." So, you see, a company is a complex system. And when I joined in 2011, there was fewer than 100 of us. And now it's around 1,000. That's a tenfold growth, and this is just the numbers. You know, and even with those numbers, like think about the number of the nodes in this complex system, how connected it is, you know, like all the connections between them, how it should organize itself to work smoothly. And at the same time, all the time, things are changing around, outside the company, inside the company. Ambitions are growing. The expectations are growing both internally and externally. So the number of factors, the number of nodes in this system, this does necessitate some mindful work on organization and making this cooperation more structured. So 2020 was basically a wake-up call for us to tend to our garden, to make all of this more mindful. And I do believe this togetherness of ours helped, and I also think that you can actually grow it from scratch. You just need to be purposeful about it. But the fact that as I believe we had it natural, it did help because we banded together in a common effort to improve the game, to figure out what went wrong and what we can do better. We had this tendency for straight talking. We had the decreased distance between ranks due to the informality in the culture that I mentioned. And Mind you, it is quite typical normally in game dev to have a certain informality in the culture. However, in our case, it does apply to all the other teams as well. Our board, you just say hi to the board on the corridor, you know, they wear t-shirts just like me. Finances, legal, tax, not just dev. Like our legal team, one of the coolest team. There's a DJ there, there is a fencing champion, you know, so because we all talked, it brought this diversity of perspectives. And I will allow myself another quote. Diversity can stabilize a system and make it resilient to environmental changes. Diversity helps a system to survive in tough environments. It increases flexibility and it feeds innovation. And this is a quote from Management 3.0 by Jürgen Appello. It's a very good book. It's a book we really like in CDPR. It informed our transformation after Cyberpunk release. One of the books, of course. Highly recommended. So we jump into action 2021. Our new strategy is announced. So this is taken from a presentation that is actually available on our website. And the top 2 points are further developing a healthy and sustainable work environment. Rolling out agile ways of working. And agile is also very much about close collaboration. And at the same time, internally, we create RED 2.0 initiative, which is our transformation initiative. And here are its goals. You can read them, but I would like you to pay a special attention to the second one, because the second one, in its definition, includes this collaboration that I am talking about here so much. This goal is all about recognizing that our games are developed in close human collaboration. And also in those times, actually it was still in 2020, a day after Cyberpunk 2077 release on the 11th of December 2020, a series of meetings was started, fixed coordination meetings. They were started by our board. Adam Kiciński from the board invited a bunch of people, including me. And we started meeting every single day to figure out what is the most important to do, what needs fixing, what needs addressing, what are the priorities. And there was a technical support team back then, before player experience and safety, QA, producers, programmers. There was the community team also, and the community team is another communications team in charge of activities for players and of official social media. So someday, people from the technical support team and from the community team sat down together and created a list, a document called Players' Top Feature Requests and Complaints. And here you will see a snippet. It's just the top. Don't worry, there was much more. And these are some top priorities there. You can see police system featured heavily, which is something we've been addressing since the release. Like across patches, we've been addressing these things, but they especially informed the overhaul in 2.0. This document, together with other inputs from other teams and with own design of the dev teams, was reforged into priorities for the gradual total overhaul of Cyberpunk 2077. What you see here is this cross-functional alignment and diverse perspectives of different teams taken into account to make something better. And, well, in those fixed coordination meetings, we also made, in 2021, a conscious decision to focus on stability and performance improvements, as well as bug fixing. So our first patch that we released, not the first patch, but the first bigger patch, 1.3 that we released in 2021, was huge and, well, kind of unsexy, because it was just a lot of changes. It was a lot of improvements. It was a lot of stability, performance, bug fix improvements, and we did our best to list them. So before the presentation making, I asked our marketing creative team to make this Well, this video for me, this GIF, so I can show you the patch notes in a sped up form, because it takes a while to read it. But even though it's shortened, like many things have to be shortened to show in such a thing. It was the right decision back then to focus on having the obstacles to enjoyment removed, because there is something in cognitive psychology. It's called negativity bias, and basically people pay more attention to the stuff that is negative than to the stuff that is positive. So, for example, if you lose €100, it pains you much more than if you found €100 on the street, like the negative feeling is heavier than the positive feeling of joy from finding it. Also in 2021, a group called Closing Squad was created. And this Closing Squad they were people from all kinds of disciplines. And here you can see the responsibilities of owners of various disciplines. And in 2023, Player Experience and Safety, my team joined this group. And here are my responsibilities within this group of owners. As you see, a wide host of teams working together to align, to figure out what is the most important, what needs addressing especially, what we want to introduce, and what our updates will contain. And then September 2023 comes, and we release 2.0, and later on the 26th we released Phantom Liberty. And we are pretty happy because we worked very hard, and the response is pretty positive, and it does give us joy. And here you can see Gabe Amatangelo, the game director, celebrating about an hour after the midnight release of the expansion, writing on our Slack, "Congratulations, everyone! What a journey this has been. I feel so privileged to have worked with you on all this." Happy emotes. And people responding to it in the middle of the night, people were really excited. This is great, yes. However, there is still a way to go. And we organized this retrospective, a post-mortem, for Phantom Liberty and 2.0 creation. And developers in the questionnaire were asked, okay, so what was the positive, what you enjoyed about this, what we should definitely repeat? So they said content teams, so cross-disciplinary teams. They also mentioned agile transformation, so RED 2.0 that I mentioned earlier. Also, high level of communication. Well, good to communicate well. However, they were also asked about the negative things, like what should be improved, what we could do better, what we should still focus on and work hard on. And among other things, silos were mentioned. So this means that there is still a way to go. Like, we still need to destroy those silos. We still need to work on working. We need to work on working even closer together, and we just need to make sure that we understand each other and talk to each other across those disciplines. And the fact that people mention it here means two things. One thing is this awareness that we still have work to do, but the other thing is increased self-awareness, awareness that we had those silos and that this is not something good and we don't want that. And finally, in 2024, just a few months ago, we had this big meeting in the company about values, actually. And we have two joint CEOs. And one of those joint CEOs, Michał Nowakowski, he said something which I really wanted to quote. So here it is. This company has always been at its best when it's united. And we were at our weakest when we were siloed. So I ran up to him after that meeting and I asked him, hey, can I quote it? And he said, yes. So here it is. I'm mentioning a joint CEO because we have two joint CEOs. One of them is this one, Michał Nowakowski, and he represents the business part of our operations. So he's, for example, responsible for our BizDev teams and legal teams. The other joint CEO is Adam Badowski, who is responsible for the creative part, which is development. So even in our joint CEOs, you can see these parts of company working together. So we learned to nurture our close ties. And when you have this close cooperation internally, when there is input coming from the outside, like for example, player reports, then you have a relevant action created much faster because the system internally works faster, is better organized, can talk to each other better, come up with a relevant resolution much faster too. And to sum up, there is no game making without cooperation, but for it to happen on a scale of 1,000 people, it requires everyday mindful effort, or quite a lot of hard work. Okay, I bored you to death with all this intro, so let's get to the bugs journey. Yes, there were some bugs. And when people want to report those bugs, they come to the support website. Of course, there is a knowledge base. They can check if there is already maybe a solution to their issue. They can help themselves. But if they do not find an answer to their question, they can submit a ticket. And here you can see a questionnaire which they fill when they want to submit a ticket. It's one of many questionnaires because they are customized for particular platforms, for kinds of issues, and so on. And the thing is that they are made in such a way that from the very start, by a person even clicking like which platform they have, is it box or digital, we get a lot of relevant info to initially categorize those issues, even without players writing too much. So with minimal description, we collect the relevant details, and so those tickets fly in. And they fly in many languages, like jouabilité here. Yes, so the fact that there's many of those languages on the support website and that the tickets come in many languages, it necessitates interpretation. Because I'm not sure if you know, but Cyberpunk does not have direct translation from Polish to English in it. We have English adaptation. So there is the Polish version written by our story team, and then it is adapted into English by our English adaptation team, and then the English version is sent to vendors, and then those vendors translate it into other languages. So here, as an example, I have presented to you in a tool just 3 languages to not overwhelm you. We have the names of quests. So this is the quest Automatic Love. It is the name of a song, actually, because our quest team, when implementing the quests, they decided to call the quests with names of songs. And this is only in the English language because the Polish language has Dom Lalek, a completely unrelated name, which means the house of dolls. For other languages, it was the translator's decision. So, for example, I am not showing to you here the French version because the French translator decided to use Automatic Love also to transport this reference, to this particular song, because you might want to check this particular song that our quest team chosen. However, the Spanish translator decided to select a song, indeed, a song in the Spanish language that would be relevant for their context. So it is called Al calor del amor en un bar, in the heat of love in a bar. So you can see how this works. And we don't actually have tech support agents in every single language. From some languages, there's not also that many tickets. It isn't always justified to hire them just for the language. But we have those tools. And they allow us to collate the data, to compare different reports in different languages, to see what a person is actually talking about. And it's not just about the language, because people also tend to write in different ways. Sometimes 3 different players can have 3 different interpretations of what is happening to them, like of the symptom that they see. And also, we need to verify those reports. Because players report something that looks like a bug to them. Well, it behaves like a bug. But, as I said here, not all buggy is as buggy does. Because there might be issues which are caused, for example, by an application conflict. Especially on the PC, the number of permutations of what kind of hardware and what kind of software you can have is just insane. So it might cause some idiosyncrasies on the part of the player, which are just irreproducible on the side of the developer. We might not even ever install a kind of software that they might have on their PC, which is causing them some issues. However, we do try to reach out if we learn that, for example, a bigger software which is widely used is causing by some conflict issues related to our game. We reach out and ask if they know about it, if they could do something about it to still reach a resolution. So at some point, for example, we achieved that with Discord. Another type of software which can cause some conflicts may be mods, especially outdated mods, because after you update a game, unfortunately, mods often become outdated and they might cause issues. So here you have an example. There was an issue being reported to our technical support team in the chipping in quest. And players were getting stuck. So the tech support team started tracking it, thinking it's a trend. But then after a while, it emerged that all of those people were using a particular mod and that it was related to mod usage. And we also have a tool which allows us to check if a given save that is submitted to us as materials for a particular bug being reported, if it uses mods. And here you can see is modded true. And this little command line tool was created for us by the company called Geeksoft. They are a modding company and they cooperate with us very closely. Quite recently, they helped us create RedKit. They actually made it with our help more. And the RedKit for The Witcher 3, it was released in May 2024. And we also work with them quite closely, our team as well. All right, but I'm mentioning all those variables which might cause people to think that it's a bug, but it's not a bug. But there must be some bugs, right? Well, there are. So here is one such bug. It is related to the radio in V's apartment. And this one is pretty straightforward. So players are describing it in such a way that they can even be quoted. So a player says here, V's apartment's radio cannot be used. I don't see the options to select the channel nor turning it on or off. And in this case, the only thing you need to determine is whether it's in all the apartments of V's, because she has more than one, or in Mega Building H10. And it was indeed only the Mega Building H10 apartment. So this is reflected in the summary of this JIRA. Here you also have the priority. This is a P3, a priority 3 issue. It's not something that breaks progression. It is more of a cosmetic issue. It's pretty minor, so it's a priority 3. However, it has 45 occurrences in total, which is well, it's not an insane number. We've seen much worse, but it is still a significant number which attracts some of our attention. So we do notice it. We are providing some workarounds, like this is for storage, for knowledge exchange between the technical support agents, and to have it more orderly. There is also a lot of evidence the materials submitted by players to show what is happening. For content issues, quest-related issues, saves are the most important. So in the initial stage, it's saves to just see if something is happening on our end that is happening to a player, because maybe it's only on the player's end. But at a later stage, our QA may often ask for saves from the earlier progression to see when something started happening that caused the issue. Even if it was invisible at the time, perhaps the signal, for example, was stuck somewhere in the quest structure at a very early stage, and then, well, all this investigation detective work can be done by our QA. And here you also have a little screenshot. So I took this screenshot from this Jira. It was not the worst resolution, so I'm not very ashamed to show it. Here you have the music you might hear in V's apartment when listening to this radio. Right, very nice, huh? But what if you want to change the channel? Or what if you want to turn it off? I would be talking like this over this music for the whole presentation. Well, so this is exactly the problem that our players reported. They wanted to be able to change the channel or turn the radio off. We also look at some additional resources, not just our reports to our tech support. And for example, we check Reddit. Our team especially likes Reddit, probably because of the upvoting system. It makes it easier to collect trends because there are some relative numbers. So here you can see a player mentioning this radio issue, and they say, "My radio ain't working either, true. Hopefully the Mega Building 10 admins fix that issue soon." And indeed, the Mega Building 10 admins were on the topic. But at this point, we also often compare our notes with the community team that I mentioned earlier, the ones that oversee the social media and so on. And many other people in the company are on the lookout for reported issues. Many people lurk on Reddit and so on. So we collect our perceptions, and we usually congregate on Slack. So it is worth mentioning at this point the prioritization, because those issues need to be prioritized. And there are several factors. Game breaking, blocker, quest's importance, lost access to product-defining features, no workaround, annoying, visibility, and occurrences. And in the case of our radio, the deciding factors were visibility and occurrences. Visibility because it was mentioned quite a lot online in many different places, and occurrences because while the number was not insane, it was visible to us internally. So we discussed this issue with the closing squad, and it eventually got a higher priority from P3 to P2 because of visibility and occurrences. It was also a quick, easy and non-risky fix, which is also an important factor when deciding if something should go to an update, because actually by making changes, you can break something. That's that about the radio. But there is something else that I would also like to mention at this point, and I call it the forevermore perspective. And this is basically leaving the product in great condition at the end of the patching cycle. It is good for players, and admittedly, it's also good for the bottom line because such a product is polished. And the objective is to eliminate significant obstacles to player experience when possible, and even if they would normally be perceived as minor. So this issue seems minor, but it was reported by players, they noticed it, they thought the game would be better if it was not there. And the player experience team's goal is to evaluate and understand what brings players value and to focus on that. And this concept of value is pretty important in Agile. You want to focus on what brings value, on what actually progresses you forward towards the goals that you have. And it has to be said at this point that prioritization in highly complex games is a non-trivial pursuit. In Cyberpunk alone, you have a myriad of possible paths. You have ability to move during cutscenes. You can take a quest, roam the streets, forget about it. There are all the interacting game systems on many different levels, from the lowest programming level to the VFX and so on. So all of this leads to very high complexity. So knowing which priority 3 issue, which P3 to fix, can be very valuable. And here are those statistics that I mentioned, the number of occurrences. These are, for example, the top reported issues that were fixed in the 2.1 update in December 2023. Here you can see the numbers, and this is our radio issue. And for comparison, and maybe also for your curiosity, here you can see similar statistics from 2015 summer during the patching cycle of The Witcher 3. You can see that our tools became more sophisticated since then. However, some things still remain, like occurrences, priorities, status. This is not the issues that were the top reported at the very beginning after The Witcher 3 was released, because some of stuff was already removed from the spreadsheet. By then it was fixed. All right. I mentioned that we have those JIRAs that the tech support team logs based on what players report. So this is in the project called Cyberpunk Technical Support Reports. CTSR for short. However, to have the description also in terms of the underlying systems, the QA team creates a paired JIRA for such a report in the CP77, Cyberpunk 2077 project. And here you can see our radio issue, the CTSR for the radio issue. This is the summary that you've already seen earlier. And here is its equivalent in terms of the underlying systems in the CP77 project. And it says, player cannot interact with Q001_V_radio in V apartment. And this is actually pretty straightforward. Like, if you saw these two, you could probably guess that this is the same issue. But definitely QA input is very needed here, because this is not always so straightforward. Yes, close cooperation with QA, important. Because you can have, for example, an issue like this, unable to open the menu, inventory, stash, map, hollow calls, and use fast travel. So the equivalent in terms of underlying systems, some players have gameplay restriction .block all hub menu active on their saves. And then another issue, V's and NPC's skin becomes excessively shiny, oily-like, metallic chrome when RTX is on. And the equivalent, regression, ray tracing mode have broken reflection in area not covered by reflection probes. I wasn't correcting the language anywhere here. This last issue is interesting also because of the cooperation that was going on here. Because we cooperated not just with our technical programming teams and with our tech QA on this one, but also with NVIDIA. And this was fixed. Also in 2.1, by the way. So yes, this collaboration with many teams is pretty fruitful. And here you have another interesting example. We had a crash being reported, but at first we only knew this first part, that game crashes. Like often when players write about things like that, they just write, it's crashing for me, help. So it might be that, plus maybe the name of the quest. With time, we made it obligatory to include the name of the quest and so on. But it was not known that it was if catwalk segment detached. So our friend from QA, Michał, he took the evidence, the saves that were attached with these reports, and he started playing around with them. So he did manage to reproduce the issue, and it turned out that it was indeed happening when this condition was true. And this is an optional thing that you can do in this quest. It's not obligatory at all. You don't have to detach this catwalk segment. So no wonder that not all the players had this issue. And it was not very clear when it's happening, because sometimes people did it, sometimes did not when they were testing it. We already had this issue logged, because it often also happens that the issue is already known. It's not always player reports, we log, and then a QA logs based on it. No, Often the issue is already there, but sometimes it's more difficult to prioritize it because, like, for example, in this case, we had this call stack here, which I'm not going to try to read. It was known, but it had to be closed because we had no repro. We didn't know how to reproduce it. It was not known about the catwalk segment. And then this great QA person here, this Michał from QA that I mentioned, he's testing different scenarios and he discovers this, and because his PC is connected to our system, when the crash occurs on his PC, this Jira is automatically reopened and we know what and why is happening and we can fix it. So this cross-team cooperation, it happens in many different ways. Of course, I mentioned there's this closing squad, and we are there are meetings within the closing squad. But there are also other ways. Here, for example, we can see email with some filter from Jira included and some label mentioned, and this went to the whole CP Cyberpunk team. Here you can see, well, me writing something on Slack. This was actually on the day when we decided with the closing squad to fix this radio issue. And it was one of those P3s that were addressed. There are, of course, also one-on-one discussions on Slack or live. There are small groups. Well, and sometimes there is also this thing that happens. Those very long mega threads. It is good when they lead to something productive. I think this one actually did. It was something about Xbox external storage. There is also this monster that appears sometimes when addressing issues, and it is called a retrofix. So I've shown you earlier this Jira log, and there were workarounds there. So here there is indeed a workaround, and it says, if the issue is still present, player needs to go to sleep in V's apartment, and it's in 2.1. And I did mention that this radio issue was fixed in 2.1. So what gives? Why is there some workaround for the version in which the issue is supposedly fixed? Maybe if we dig into the CP77 Jira, the underlying systems one, we can see some explanation. So it says there in a comment, which I quote here, due to device's persistent state, retrofix is provided as a node enabling the interaction after player uses the bed to sleep. Retrofix. So what is this retrofix? I will try to illustrate it. Bear with me. Alt playthrough starts. Let's say a player starts a playthrough. Let's call it an alt playthrough, and then an issue occurs, and then after this whole process that I am describing here, a fix is released and player gets the fix. And then if a player starts a new playthrough, there should be no issue. However, in some cases, if this alt playthrough is continued from the alt save, which was created across many different versions, the issue might still remain. And then a retrofix needs to be created. A retrofix is basically a fix for all those old versions of the game which exist on the game that is already released and it is live. So sometimes when you read in the patch notes that X was fixed, it might be that underneath there is one fix for the underlying issue and 9 retrofixes for all the different conditions in which it might happen on old saves. And these retrofixes are risky because they are additional changes. Every change is a disruption to the complex system. It has to be tested. It has to be tested individually. It has to be tested as a part of the larger system, as a part of a build or on the branch. If they pile up on one another, you have to pay a special attention to how the conditions are set. So they need to be set in such a way that it only works, this retrofix, for affected players, and it doesn't break stuff for everyone else. Oh yeah, and retrofix may mirror the fix, meaning like it basically does exactly the same as the same effect as the fix, or it might work another way. And in this case, we have retrofix, which works in another way, meaning a player has to do something, go to bed in their apartment, and then it will start working. So with those retrofixes, we had some issues reported regarding our holographic calls systems in Cyberpunk. So we've been fixing those issues since the release of the game. And we piled up quite a few retro fixes. And at some point after 2.0 release, we realized that there are only edge cases still reported, and it would be too risky to pile on more retro fixes on this system. So we decided, together with the production team, with the Quest team, with the QA team, that we do not do any more retro fixes for the holographic calls. But we still wanted to help the players. So this Michał, our close collaborator from the QA that I already mentioned before, he pitched an idea to me and to Paweł Sasko, the Quest director, that he could create a tool for players to basically use if they still have some issues with holographic calls. And this is what you see when someone calls you. So this idea was good. Paweł Sasko also deemed that it was non-risky to the system of our Quest structure, so it should be fine. And Michał did create it. It's basically a phone in the game. And you can go to this phone, and it might help you. How does it work? A player writes to technical support and they say, hey, I have this and that issue. Okay, give us saves. Aha, this is an issue that could be fixed by the HoloFixer. So the tech support gives such a player a phone number. They go to that place, to those particular coordinates. They call and their issues might be fixed. And players are usually pretty happy when this happens. So here you can see some feedback about this. Problem solved. We would like to express our gratitude and respect to our excellent developers. So we were very pleased. And also the internet noticed this. And someone here is commenting under a YouTube video. Imagine talking to system support and have them say, go to this point on the map, call this number on the phone. And the video creator says, it is super cool and Matrix-like. So, you know, the world of the outside and the world of the inside, it is all intertwining in this great circle of life. So when you create a patch, you also need to collect patch notes. Here you have some little excerpt from the patch note creation doc for a big patch. So the radio one was for 2.1. 2.1 was a big patch. In a big patch, we often ask people who created some features to list them, because one feature might, for example, be 100 change lists in the change list tracker, so it doesn't exactly make sense to go one by one for 5,000 change lists and list them. So it's better to ask people and also check Jira and see the most reported issues and see which ones of them were fixed. And then you have the patch notes for a large patch. But for a smaller patch, we do indeed go change list by change list. So this is from the patch note collection doc for 2.02, which was a smaller patch. Here you can see my little tribute to people of the tech teams, the unsung heroes of tech, who create all those changes, who sound like this one here. Sync raycast by collision preset for scripts optimization, which is basically a minor optimization, and it would be very difficult to express these changes in a way which would bring meaning to players instead of an overwhelm from 5,000 changes that sounds similar to this one. However, they do make a hell of a lot of difference. So, chapeau bas. And we also have functional verification of such patch note lists, because, as I mentioned, every change has to be tested individually. It also has to be tested as a part of a build or on the branch. But in case of patch notes, every change is also additionally tested if it indeed works, because it would be quite not cool to release patch notes and something doesn't work. It still sometimes happens because the game is super complex, but we do try to prevent it. So here you can see an excerpt from such a checking document in which the QA has been checking some entries for 2.1, and this is the radio issue. We have a patch notes guide. with various good advice, like, for example, the standards for writing. So here you can see an example rule. For quests and open world entries, write the quest name first, then after a dash, describe what was fixed, changed. We arrived at these rules over some period of time, so if you go to the first patch notes just after Cyberpunk 2077 release, they were less orderly than the ones at the end of the cycle. But we did record this. This is like good common sense advice. Fixes described as blind or tentative generally shouldn't end up in patch notes, as they might not fix the issue. A blind or tentative fix is usually a fix which is an educated guess, because, for example, we know that something is happening to players, but we are unable to reproduce it on our end internally. So someone figures out what might be the fix, and usually those fixes work, but we are not 100% sure they will, so we do not describe them in patch notes because we just don't know for sure. And then, when we have this initial list, which is verified, the English adaptation team proofreads it, so it's written in nice, smooth English. Then it's sent to translation vendors. Here you can see the Portuguese-Brazilian translation provided by a translation vendor. And this is a helicopter view of the 11 languages of Cyberpunk 2077 patch notes, just for a few entries. This is it. The red thing is something which was removed probably because it didn't work. Probably QA determined so in this functional check. Or sometimes we learn that, in this particular condition, this will not work. Okay, remove. The yellow and green thing is because something was changed already after we had the translations from the vendors. So every single language has to be adjusted. We learned that something needs to be clarified, for example. I will also say at this point that translation vendors often have very good input because some things, when written in English, you do not see the ambiguity until someone tries to translate it to another language. Yes. And finally, there is also the final proofreading because our community team proofreads the stuff that we get from the translation vendors. And at last, this is what landed on our website in the patch notes on the day, or maybe the day before, the patch 2.1 was released. It will now be possible to properly interact with the radio in V's apartment in Mega Building H10. Yay! This was the translation doc. And this was the verification doc, I think. No, this was the patch note collection doc. This is the change list. This was one of the changes submitted in one changes and fixing MQOOO radio interaction. This is the underlying systems JIRA. And this is the player experience JIRA. And here you can see the reaction on Reddit. It will now be possible, 305 upvotes, not so bad. It was a good fix. It was just one fix. It was just one bug's journey, just one among many, and each one of them is the work of many people. And it took many such fixes, changes, conversations, decisions, and hard work to make Cyberpunk what it is now. And we did learn to take care of our close ties. And we have this common goal to transform. We had this common goal to transform Cyberpunk 2077 and ourselves. We focused on it and worked on it together. And we were purposefully fostering collaboration, methodology, tools, pipelines, interactions. And yes, we were listening to each other more. And we had increased self-awareness, understanding common priorities. So, yeah, a lot of combined effort and determination in all parts of the company. And then we got the effects. And where would I look as a person from the player experience team other than at what players say about this whole thing? So yes, this is insane. It is almost like a sequel. Wow! Guerrilla Arms 2.0, holy shit. Thank you so much, CDPR. Really exceptional work. At least these guys had the decency to own up to their faults. We did try. we hope that we did good enough. Breathtaking. Cyberpunk 2077 redeems itself by becoming the great game it promised to be years ago. 10 and 10. I came, I saw, I came again. Best update ever. And here you can see a video of the gameplay changes introduced in 2.0. Someone highly recommends it, and 18K upvotes. That's, again, not so bad. And here you can see a thread on Reddit from after we released the Best Ongoing Game Awards at the Game Awards in December. And someone said that this has to feel euphoric for CDPR. They've been working so hard to add things to the game for 3 years ongoing. And indeed, it was satisfying, and we were very happy that people are enjoying the changes and the fruits of our hard work. And someone said, seriously good redemption arc. So yeah, thank you. Thank you so much also for being here and for listening me to, droning on about all this. But this really this changed a lot for us, and this was a difficult process, but is also a very important process and something that I guess also changed our outlook on life. This is not the end. Thank you. So about that bot, the security bot. So this is the thread on Reddit from which I've taken the bot. And 7.3K updates, and someone says best update ever. And they say never change CDPR. So what is the answer to that question? Is it a bug or a feature? Well, the answer is that it doesn't matter because this brings people joy and people are happy. And it makes someone smile. It makes people just have fun together. So it needs to stay, obviously, duh. And this is another, the last quote I promise, because the most important thing is to know what to fix and what never needed fixing. And this is a quote from me. Merci. And yeah, so thank you. Join the discussion. And I will also say that Charles Tremblay, my valued colleague here, he will be having a talk. I tried to write when in French. And it will be today at 15:30. And if you would like to work for us, here you can scan the QR code and check our job offers. And I also brought some candy from Poland. And also, if you want to approach after this talk, then you can come. And he will also have some candy, so you know. Okay, this is it. Thank you for surviving this whole ordeal. I hope it was okay-ish. So, do you have some questions?
First, thank you very much for your speech. It was very valuable. I had a question. At some point, you mentioned how working in silo was being an issue. And I know that in most of the companies, I think it is. And I was wondering, in how you try to tackle that issue, were there any obstacles coming in your way to try not to be in silo anymore?
Well, for sure, because different teams might be used to different ways of working, and they may have some procedures or some habits, basically, that they are really used to. When you have those habits, it gets very efficient to work in this way over time. So if you suddenly want to change everything and adjust people to work with, across many different teams, sometimes you have to destroy some of those old habits, and it makes people a bit less efficient for some time. So it is usually not without a short-term, at least, price. When people sometimes people felt that even in we had content teams, so-called, they were the agile teams that we had for the creation of Phantom Liberty, and sometimes people complained that those content teams were siloed from one another. So, they were already cross-functional teams with people from different disciplines, but from other teams like that, they sometimes felt there could be more communication and more collaboration. So this was being addressed, well, along the years, along the time as they went. And also, with Agile, it's very much about repetition of the word escapes me. But you try, and you try again. So it doesn't always make for absolutely the most efficient way to do something fast. But you do try, and the result at the end is supposed to be the most relevant one.
Thank you very much.
Of course.
Right, yes, question here. I'm here. Yeah.
Oh, hi.
Right. Well, thank you very much. It was really, really interesting and really enlightening about the process. And I was wondering, there is a very specific kind of bug because it affects only a certain categories of players, which are accessibility bugs. Mm-hmm. And, well, the reception for Cyberpunk was not really great for accessibility at the start. Mm-hmm. And I was wondering if there was a process now in place to collect feedback from players with disabilities. And has it informed the process? How does it fare now?
Mm-hmm. We do have like a separate category to collect these type of issues from players. So on the website there is a way to report them. But about the internal process, we did introduce some improvements and changes. Some of them in a more official way, some of them in less official way. Especially in 2.1, we did increase the number of accessibility-related options. We even actually our team created a write-up on the comparison of what was there formerly and what is there, well, now, meaning in 2.1, which you can find on our support website. And we were aware that this is not like everything that could potentially be done in a game to have the highest absolute standard of accessibility. But we did what could be done in a game that was already released, which already had its systems. Like I mentioned many times, introducing any change is also a risk. So you always have to weigh what you can do within the scope that you have, within the time that you have, until you have something which is doable to be released on time and in a way that is satisfactory to players in the end. But we definitely have learnings about accessibility features and what we would like to have. So for our future projects. We are an ambitious company, so yes, stay tuned. Yeah, like Charles said.
Thank you.
Hello, thank you for your presentation and congratulations on your redemption arc completion. I was curious to know how you did define the finish line. What was the success criteria to assume you were done with this overall initiative to fix the game?
Mm-hmm. I would say that this was the response to 2.0 and how Phantom Liberty and how 2.0 are faring. If the players are overall satisfied, we are also looking at all kinds of measurable quantities. Like, for example, when you look at Steam reviews. On Steam, people actually have to have the game purchased to give a review. So when you fingers crossed. But when you look at ours, then they improved over time. And when you look at latest, it is better than what was aggregated at the beginning. So it's also good to look sometimes at those high-level measurements. Because it shows what is the overall sentiment. Well, you also, of course, see it in the headlines, in the tone of Reddits, subreddits relevant for cyberpunk and gaming in general. So in some ways it was a bit quantifiable. In some ways maybe less, but the overall sum of perceived player satisfaction and our internal satisfaction in what we did was taken into account. Plus, we also did 2.1 after 2.0 because we still felt that we wanted to improve some things and add some things.
Thank you.
Of course.
Hello.
Excusez-moi, ce sera la dernière question et this will be the last question and then we'll find another way to go through.
Thank you for the presentation. What do you automate in the collecting and prioritizing of bugs, and how do you automate it? Do you use custom tools? Do you develop custom tools? Do you use Jira or Excel? And did you start automating things that were not automated in these processes before 2.0 or before Cyberpunk? Thank you.
Well, this process that I am describing here, meaning the top reported issues that you see in Jira, what I've shown you, the relative numbers, it is not automated because the numbers are too small. If you want to train an AI, then you need a little bit more numbers, and if the numbers are changing from patch to patch, it's even more difficult. So it is done, yes, by the little hands of the people who are counting those things, interpreting them, reading what is there actually, figuring out what it means, collating those languages and inputting it in Jira. Perhaps in the future we will automate some parts of it. It depends on the numbers and depends on the tools. Of course, maybe you're asking about generative AI. There are multiple possibilities, and you can sometimes ask AI, "Hey, tell me which of these bunch of things is like the most reported." But at this point, you kind of still have to check because they sometimes hallucinate. So we don't know 100% yet how it will go. We are open to various solutions, but we also. We feel we are responsible for this to be actually accurate. So at this point, it still requires human involvement and actual human attention to be sure that this is what is really described there. And also, AI doesn't deal that well with input in many different languages. Of course, it can translate it for itself, but it doesn't always work. That's amazing. So I'm speaking theoretically right now. We do use a mechanical translation, if this is what you're asking. Yes.
Well, thank you once again, Karolina, for your valuable perspective. Thank you all for your attention. Please, if you have any more questions to address, feel free to join the GameCamp server on the Donjon channel, where Karolina will do the best of her extent to answer all of your additional questions. Enjoy the GameCamp, have a good day, and take care.
Oh, thank you.